everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Ultimate Job Search and Career Podcast with Bill, the company's expert. And in today's episode, I'm answering a question that was sent in from a viewer who was wondering, what are the top 5 skills that you need in 2022 to, and I'm paraphrasing here, make a pile of cash, a whack of cash. I don't know how much a whack is, but it's a lot. So we're going to be talking about that today. And also we're going to be answering the question, how to sell yourself in a job interview. So stay tuned for both of those. But first, I want to thank everybody for listening, and also to invite you to subscribe to my 2 YouTube channels, The Company's Expert and The Company's Expert 2, where I primarily talk about how to get hired, how to pass a job interview, how to discover job opportunities, and otherwise advance your career. So take a moment now to subscribe to both of those. This podcast normally has its home on The Company's Expert 2, but I'll be occasionally putting it on my main channel, The Company's Expert. So do that now. I take the subtle approach. Do that now. You need to drop everything you're doing and subscribe. Okay. Anyway, getting on with it. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is a question sent in from a viewer, and I have the question right here. This is from someone I recognize, Mohib Quadri. And Mohib writes, "Sir, what are going to be the top 5 skills for 2022 in terms of earning massively, irrespective of job field or area or positions of employees?" So a universal top 5 skills list that will get you places, that will help you make more money in 2022. Excellent. That's the first thing we're going to be talking about. I think I'm going to do these in reverse order. That's what everybody normally does. Okay, now, I'm sure everybody and their brother has their own top 5 list of things that you should do in 2022 that will get you hired. Now, the things I'm recommending are not necessarily things for 2022, but these are things in general. They're timeless. They will always get you further in life and further in your career. And so I encourage everyone to put emphasis on these. And the number 5 on my list is writing abilities. Now, when you hear this, you're probably thinking, well, that's kind of an anticlimax. I mean, I don't think it really matters all that much. Actually, it does. You would be surprised. This is very important. And the reason I say it is because this is one of those things that separates the workers from the leaders, from people that work lower down in an organization to the people that are chosen generally across the board to work higher up in an organization. Okay, now regardless of your education level, regardless of whether you have friends in high places, which some people do, but a lot of people don't, okay, regardless of anything else, this will be the greatest advertisement that you are a capable professional person, okay, is your writing ability. When you write an email to somebody, when you write a text to somebody in a business context, okay, getting your, not only your spelling and grammar and that kind of stuff, but learning appropriate phrases, appropriate ways to ask for things, to say certain things, and to express yourself, okay? These, when taken together, your writing ability, they will get you far. Not only do they signal that if they were to put you into a higher level position, not only would your communication skills be good, not only would you be able to write correctly, and if you were to represent the organization and make a statement on behalf of the organization, whether that's to send a directive to employees or it's to send a more advanced report that even goes out to the public, it would not be embarrassing for the organization, and it would be professional. And it even suggests that it would be appropriate, diplomatic, and well thought out. I cannot overemphasize how important writing skills are. Now, tell me something. For all the people out there, you guys have career jobs. A lot of you, if you don't have a career job right now, you've certainly had them in the past. Usually, when you get a statement from executive management in your organization, how often is it riddled with spelling errors, grammar errors, using slang? I'm not going to say it never happens, but it's usually not the case. As opposed to if you see writing or a message or a report or anything like that written by lower level employees, just casual communication, emails, that kind of thing. Across the board, you will see a lot poor writing style. Okay? Now, if you are going for a promotion or you're putting yourself forward as an internal candidate or you're communicating with a recruiter to try and persuade them to interview you for a higher level position, your writing style not only communicates some very important things about you, but it indicates whether it would be appropriate for you to be in that position. So I'm throwing this out there. Now, people usually realize this a little bit later in their careers. After you've been out in the workforce for about 10 years, maybe longer, a lot of people realize this. When people are just starting out in their careers, they may not realize the importance of this. So if that's you, you can get a head start on everybody else in your age group by learning this early on and working on your writing skills, okay? Not only your spelling and grammar, but using professional language, using professional expressions, and writing notes in such a way that people want to work with you. Nothing offensive, nothing awkward. The ability to say, to be a bearer of bad news, but have it done in a way that it doesn't make the receiver feel anything negative. Awkward. You don't want to give the impression you're angry. It's the ideas you communicate as well as the language you use. So number 5 on my list would be writing skills. Okay, number 4. Number 4 of the top 5 skills for 2022, or indeed any time to get to become hireable and to make a pile of money, whether that's a promotion at a job or it's finding a good job, would be to take the initiative. Initiative skills. I don't know if that's a thing, but being the ability to take the initiative. Now, for those of you who don't know, initiative means that you do things on your own without asking for permission or approval before you do, or directions. Okay, you're capable of getting things done, going out and making things happen without waiting timidly to ask permission or to ask for approval before you act or ask for directions on how to act. Okay? Now, generally the way this works is that, and I'm speaking very generally here, young people coming out of school, coming out of university, coming out of college or trade school, they generally don't have this. And this is a shame. And I believe it's a direct product of the nature of the educational system. Educational system wants you to conform. They teach people in classes. They do standardized testing. All the rules apply to everyone. They have many, many rules for being in school. A lot of rules that, quite frankly, are kind of unnecessary, written by process-focused people. There's a difference between the culture of education and the culture of the real world once you get out into the workforce, especially if you go to the private sector. Complete difference in culture and values. And, generally speaking, you don't have that level of hard, fast rules. To survive in the educational system, you have to conform. You have to follow the rules. That's rewarded. If you break rules or you bend the rules or you go against them, that's generally not rewarded. And that contrasts with the outside world where if you stop to listen to what other people allow you to do and give you permission to do, it generally doesn't work out to your advantage. It works out to their advantage, which is not necessarily your advantage. Now, if you don't believe me on this, ask any entrepreneur. They will echo this, right? A lot of people that they don't work as a pawn in a large organization. They go out and they create their own livelihood. They make their own fortune. I mean, they are living examples of this principle, right? Now, I'm not saying you have to go and abandon a traditional job completely. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that being able to just go out and make things happen is an incredible skill. Being aware of how the world works, understanding people, understanding business. Okay, this stuff is incredibly helpful. And having the confidence and the skills to go and get things done. So what this culminates in is a manager who's your superior telling you, I'm giving you this assignment. I'm giving you this project, or I'm putting you in charge of this operation, or, whatever. And you say to the manager, no problem. It'll be done. I'll take care of it. And it'll be, if it's a report or something, it'll be on your desk. If it's a goal, it'll be achieved in the time specified. I'll just take care of it. And then you go and you take care of it. You don't keep coming back every 5 minutes and go, do you want me to do this way or that way? Or, should I do this or that? No, you just go and you take care of it. In order to do that, you have to have confidence. You have to have skills. But above all, it's just the realization that, look, I'm capable of making decisions. I'm capable of acting on my own authority, usually within a certain sphere of authority if you're in a larger organization. But I have responsibility for this, so I'm going to take care of it. Okay, so the ability to take initiative. Now that even begins with, for regular viewers of my regular listeners of my podcast and regular viewers of my YouTube channel, you guys will know that sounds very familiar to the way I advocate that a lot of people get a job. Okay, the way you discover job opportunities and the way you put yourself forward for job opportunities. I don't advocate that you go on the job boards and compete with all the other job seekers in a level playing field by all applying through standard channels on the same job. I don't advocate for that. I advocate for you contacting companies on your own initiative, sending them a custom message, initiating a dialogue with them, and if they have a response, if they are interested in some possibility of perhaps employing you or partnering with you or whatever you're looking for, then you pursue it. You go your own way. Generally, that gives better results than going in through standard channels on a level playing field with all the other applicants. What they're doing is they're doing the default method. But it's pretty hard to elevate yourself above the crowd when you're doing exactly the same thing that everyone else is doing. The real world is not school. So number 4 in my top 5 skills for 2022 is taking the initiative. Usually it takes 10 to 15 years to really realize this and to develop that. But if you're just starting out in your career, the most you can do to learn this early on, you will have a head and shoulders advantage above anyone else. So that's what I would say. So that's why it's number 4 on my list. Okay, number 3. The top third skill in 2022 that will help you, earn massively, irrespective of job field area or position. Okay. On my list is having business skills, is understanding basics about business. Now, full disclosure, you guys know me. I'm an ex-CEO and I'm an executive and I'm a business guy. I have an engineering degree. I have an MBA. I've been in business. I've been an entrepreneur, and I've advised entrepreneurs and startups, and I've advised SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprise. So I'm a bit biased on this one, okay? But if you want to succeed in business, and especially if you're ambitious, you want to climb the ladder in the business world, You want to go from a worker to a supervisor to a middle manager to an executive manager, if that's your ambition. Learning a bit about business helps. So if you have a background in technical skills, whatever that is, if you're in the skill trades, maybe you're an industrial electrician or a mechanic, machinist, or you work in construction, or you work on specialized equipment, or you're not in skilled trades. You're an IT person, you're a developer, you're a systems admin, you're an HR person or a salesperson, whatever you are. You've got technical skills in your area. What can be extremely powerful that will open up doors for you is tying that to having some basic business skills. You understand the basics of accounting. You understand the basics of marketing. You understand the basics of operations management. You can speak the language, and you might have responsibility for a certain area of the company. Okay, so if you work in sales, you don't just know sales, you have a broad skill set. So you also understand accounting, you understand finance, you understand operations, you understand marketing, you understand the basics of HR, you understand the basics of contract law, just a broad business training. Now, this is not really that hard to get. I mean, you could get this from a series of YouTube videos. I don't have any YouTube videos that provide that precise information, but I know there's a lot of resources. There's a lot of online resources on YouTube and outside YouTube where you can learn the stuff, or you could just take a more formal course and get a certificate in some of this stuff. I think business is taught pretty much almost everywhere. That's how it seems anyway. So tacking on some business skills to whatever technical skills you have, that will really open doors for you, especially if you have the opportunity to apply some of those skills in your current job. Okay, so that's why business skills are the number 3 on my top 5 skills for 2022. Okay, number 2. The number 2, we're getting near the top here, okay? And this is something a little bit more basic, but it's extremely important, is public speaking. Okay, public speaking skills, the ability to get up in front of a group of people and start talking. And you're not shy. You're not stumbling over what you're saying. You appear confident. You are physically capable of doing it. That means you can speak loud enough to be heard and clear enough to be understood, right? And all the sort of secondary elements of it. Like if you're trying to convince somebody, you're convincing. And if you're trying to, be, sort of more than convincing, you're trying to inspire people, it actually succeeds. And you can actually do that. Okay, so public speaking skills are very important because these come up in almost every facet of life. The ability to do this. I mean, even forgetting about business, let's say, you go to a wedding or something and somebody asks you to make a speech. You're the best man or, you have some role in the wedding. You have to get up and make a speech. Being able to do that is pretty important. And if you don't have those skills, it can be pretty nerve-wracking. Now, if you can tack that on to your existing skill set, what that's going to do is that's going to advertise to people that, first of all, you would be a candidate to be a good supervisor. Because supervisors, one of the things they have to do, anybody who manages people on a sort of lower level, maybe you manage a small group of people, is the ability to be able to get up and talk to the group. Okay, that's very important. And not to feel nervous about it, not to shy away from it, but to embrace it. And sometimes even enjoy it, and sometimes have fun with it. Because if you feel comfortable, you can instill others with those positive feelings like comfort and humor and all that, self-assuredness. Okay? Now, practice makes perfect. Public speaking comes with experience. Some people, it comes a little bit more naturally than others, but to everybody, very few people are good at it right off the bat. The vast majority of people, you learn this by practice. Practice makes perfect. So there's many ways to do this. If you don't have the opportunity to really do this as part of your job or your personal life, there are many resources to help you with this. I've mentioned it before on this channel, but there's an organization called Toastmasters International. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I was a member of them several years ago, just for I think a year and a half, something like that. And I mean, there's good points and bad points, but there's a lot of good points to that organization. Check it out. If you have no other outlet to practice this or investigate it, it's a great resource. So check that out. Toastmasters International. Just do a Google search and go from there. But public speaking will help you no matter what your job is, no matter what your industry is, no matter what your level is. Okay, so that's why it's my number 2 skill for 2022 that's going to help advance your career. And finally, we get to the pinnacle, the top here. The number 1 skill for 2022 is being likable and personable. Now, on the surface, this sounds so basic and it's probably another anticlimax, but you would be impressed with how valuable this actually is, starting from something I talk about a lot, which is a job interview. You know, a lot of people, especially when they're younger, before they've done too much of this, they kind of get the impression that job interviews are about skills and experience and education. It's not. It's not. That's kind of that's the facade. Okay, what a job interview is really about is, do they want to work with you? Are you the type of person that they would get along with, that they want to deal with on a daily basis? That's what the hiring manager has foremost on his or her mind when they interview you. They're thinking like, okay, if whoever I hire, I'm going to have to work with, okay, would I want to work with this person every day? Do I feel comfortable dealing with them? Do I enjoy interacting with them? Okay, so being likable and being personable is probably the single thing that's going to get you hired. Even if you don't have a lot of technical skills or skills in other areas, just being really likable, that alone will get you very far. When they promote people at work, you know, they're looking to promote somebody's going to get a big promotion. That's high up on the factors that will get you promoted. When we're talking generally across the board, being likable, it's very rare that they promote somebody that's really unlikable. Now, you could maybe ask yourself this, okay? I'm asking you now, of all the people that you've seen promoted for jobs, how many of those people were unlikable? Really off-putting type people? I'm willing to bet not many. Okay, that tells you something. So that's why it's my number 1 skill for 2022. If you're going to work on anything this year to help you improve your career, to either get a promotion in your current job or to find a better job, being likable is number 1. That's the thing I would most recommend people work on. I think I've done a video. Yeah, I've done a video on that. How to be likable. There's many resources you can do. And you'd be surprised how much of this it's not, how can I put this? It's not dependent on your personality and your natural traits, but on things that can be learned like any other skill. In fact, one of the most famous business books was called, or is called, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is not a very good title. It sounds like a very slimy kind of book, right? But really, it's how to be likable, how to be nice. It's be a nice person, be a good person. Be someone that people will want to work with. After you interact with them once, they say to themselves, you know, that person was really awesome. You know, I'd like to interact with them again, you know? So check that out. One of my first videos on my YouTube channel, my main YouTube channel, The Company's Expert, I don't know if you can discover this. I guess you can with a search, but it was a book review that I did of that book. It's a very short video. It's a very, very basic book review, but check that out. It's I don't know if it's the best-selling business book of all time, but it's been published in like 1930 or something, and it's been a bestseller ever since, and there's a reason why. So check that out. Okay, so those are my top 5 skills for 22. Number 1, being likable and personable. Number 2, public speaking skills. And number 3, having business skills. Number 4, having initiative. And number 5, having good writing skills. So your written communication is very good. Okay, you do those, and the world is your oyster. In fact, if you're looking for something to work on this year, something to focus your efforts on, those would be what I would recommend. And maybe a runner-up, if I'm allowed to do number 6, would be perhaps collaboration skills. Now, depending on your personality type, this may come naturally or it might not. But usually, for most jobs, to some degree, collaboration is important. You're going to be expected to collaborate with people in some capacity at some point. So learning how to do that would be also very valuable. Learning how to conduct yourself, how to disagree with somebody without making them hate you. Learning how to put forward your opinion without making people hate you. Learning how to do a variety of different things without making people hate you and not want to deal with you. Right? And in fact, if you do this correctly, you can make them like you. Usually it deals with making the other person feel good. So that's my top 5 and actually my top 6. So hopefully that was informative. I want to thank Mohib Quadri, my buddy there, because he has sent in several questions in the past, and I've answered several of his questions, and I recognize his name. So excellent job. Thank you, Mohib. And thank you to everybody who has ever sent in a question. I appreciate your participation. I appreciate your taking the time and trouble to send me questions and write down comments. Some people have said some extremely flattering things, and that's incredible. You guys are all awesome. Okay, so moving on. There's one other thing if you see what I'm saying, there's one other thing I'm going to address in this podcast, and that is how to sell yourself. This is something that a lot of people have been wondering, and in particular, how to sell yourself in a job interview. Because after all, a job interview is you making a case for yourself, and if you do this correctly, they pick you. Right? It's all about selling yourself. You're there to convince them to choose you over everybody else. Okay? So really, you're in the world of sales. I know. Most people want to kill themselves. But it's okay. It's actually really not that hard. Okay. So let's talk about how to sell yourself in a job interview. From the moment you get to the job interview, the whole purpose of you being there is for them to think that you're the person that's best suited for the job. And unlike the stuff on the surface, like how to answer job interview questions and, how I should structure my resume and how I should, what precisely I should say in my cover letter and all this kind of stuff, all the superficial stuff that a lot of people have questions about. That stuff matters for entry-level jobs. Once you've mastered the basics of that, it ceases to become about that. For mid-level jobs and upwards, it's not about that. It's about selling yourself. Okay, so number 1, what everybody needs to realize is that a job interview, it's really not about you. It's about them. Okay. So if you go to a job interview and you start talking to them all about the wonderful things that you've done, and your past history, things that have nothing to do with these people and the job that they're looking to hire you for, that's a big turnoff. They don't care. You are a stranger to them, and they don't care about you personally. They care about how you can meet their needs. They're thinking of themselves. Okay. The whole point of the job interview is the candidate is going to serve them. They get to pick the candidate that best serves their needs. Okay? Now, you could be Albert Einstein. You could be brilliant. But if you don't have the things that they're looking for, then they won't hire you. They will turn down Albert Einstein. In fact, Albert Einstein was turned down. A lot of great people were turned down. Nikola Tesla was turned down. That famous thing that everybody knows about Nikola Tesla. He was digging ditches for a living at one point. You know, if he had retained the patents on his invention, he'd be like a trillionaire or something like right now. But he was digging ditches. Because it's not about how brilliant the candidate is. It's about how the candidate can serve the needs of the recruiter and the hiring manager. So that's the first thing everybody needs to know. Okay, it's not about you. So when you go to the job interview, you talk about how you have, first of all, the things they've said they're looking for. Okay, so these are the job requirements. You speak to those. If they're looking for someone who has this education, 5 years experience in this, and these skills, you go in there and you make sure that they know that you have that education, 5 years experience in the thing they're looking for, and those skills. You make sure they understand that. You might have to mention that a couple of times so that it really sinks in, right? You make sure they realize that. Then you have to show them, you don't tell them, but you show them firsthand that you are a person that they would want to work with. So when you get there, even though they might ask you these weird questions and some honestly kind of borderline offensive questions sometimes, don't show frustration. Don't show anger, even though that might be the reasonable response to some of the things that they say and, you know, maybe some of the ways they treat people. But if you do that, you've lost it. You've lost the interview right there. Okay, you have to be likable. You have to be personable. You have to be someone that they would want to work with and want to interact with. Okay, very important. So you got to be likable. You got to be personable. Okay, very important. A lot of people forget that. And they come in and they don't smile. They just look very kind of stern and they look how they feel, which is like nervous. You know, maybe they're panicking a little bit on the inside. They're desperately trying to remember, you know, their preparation that they did. You know, you don't want to look like that. You want to look pleasant. You want to look approachable, agreeable, right? Okay. Then, physically, in terms of how you present yourself, the clothes you wear, your attire, and your grooming, and the expression on your face, you want to look the part. Okay, so if you're going for a job that requires you to drive a truck, maybe you're driving truck for a life, you want to look like someone who drives truck, a professional person who drives truck, right? If you're going for a middle manager position, say like a plant manager position, you want to look like a professional plant manager. You don't want to show up in a tux. You don't want to show up in sweatpants. You want to look the part. Okay? That's selling them on you. You see, the thing is, when you walk into a job interview and you look like the candidate, all you have to do is not talk yourself out of a job. But if you walk in there and you really don't look like the candidate, you walk in the room and before you've said anything or before you've sat down, all the interviewers are thinking like, here we go again. How long is this going to take so we can get to another candidate who we're going to hire, right? If you don't look like the candidate, now you've got a much tougher task. Now you've got to talk yourself into a job. You've got to change everybody's mind about you and get them to think that you're the person. That's pretty hard. You're swimming uphill on that one. So you got to look the part. Okay, that's how you sell yourself. You look appropriate and you look professional. Then you got to talk about your capabilities. Now remember, the temptation in a job interview is for you to talk about what you've done in the past in another situation for another company. Now, this is not helped by the fact that sometimes they ask you about that. They might even ask you directly. They may say like, you know, tell me about yourself.
They may say, why should we hire you? And, a lot of the things out of your mouth are going to be like, well, I've done this and I've done that. I had this challenge in the past and this is how I solved it, right? But remember, you're there not to talk about the past, not to talk about what work you did for somebody else. Running through the entire interview is what you can do for them. That's what you're there for. So remember, that's got to be the theme of what you're talking about. One of the things I recommend people is not to go on for very long when you're describing your history. Okay, you don't want to be there for 10 minutes talking about something you did 10 years ago in a different industry, in a different job, completely different, completely irrelevant to the job that they're looking to hire you for, right? You don't want to be doing that. You want to be thinking, okay, I'm here to meet their needs. Because if I meet their needs better than anyone else, they're going to hire me. So remember that. It's not about the past, it's about the future. It's about your capabilities, what you can do for them. So when you're talking about your history, what you've done, if they say, tell me about the time when you were in this role, what's that all about? You could say something like, well, I did this and that, but that taught me how to do this. So if ever I encounter this problem, I know how to solve it. I know how to lead a team. I know how to overcome a technical problem. I know how to manage a project. I know how to stick to a budget because of that experience, right? You're tying your past to these people's needs, okay? That's what's important. Don't talk about the past. Always think of what these people will need you for and what you can bring to them in the future. Okay? And finally, how to sell yourself is all about soft skills. Okay? In the job interview, what they're looking for is they're looking for soft skills. That's why they want to see you in person. They want to see you in the flesh. Okay? Now, these days, a lot of times people are confined to doing video calls, but that's fine. It's essentially the same thing. They want to see you up front. They want to interact with you, and they want to get a sense of how you are as a person. If they hire you and put you in charge of a team, do you look like someone that is capable of doing that? Are you personable? Do you have good communication skills? Do you understand protocol? Do you understand what's appropriate? Do you have the right attitude? Okay, things like this. Now, what you can do to sell yourself on your soft skills also is things like professionalism. How do you show you're professional? Well, number one, you prepare yourself. You prepare yourself for the interview. If you are well rehearsed and you are well prepared for the interview, that's communicating that, first of all, you're taking this interview seriously, right? If you have prepared for it, and if you've prepared a lot and you're very well rehearsed, that signals that this is important to you and you're treating it with respect and you're taking it seriously. Okay? If you are informed about the company with which you are interviewing, that also convinces them that you're a professional. You're someone who knows how to do things properly. You came here, you knew about the company. You might have even had the opportunity to look up the interviewers. If you knew in advance who the individuals were that you were going to be interviewing, that were going to be interviewing you, you look them up on things like LinkedIn. You can see their history. You can see, okay, this person is an HR person. They have a strong background in this. This other person is a plant manager, and they know a lot about, this particular operation. And this person over here is an accountant. So I know who I'm talking to, right? I know that the accountant worked in a very large company, and I also worked in that company in the past. We didn't work there at the same time, but we share that experience. So that's maybe something that could be useful if that came up in the interview, because there's a link up there, right? You prepared, right? You prepared yourself for the interview. So it's things like this that are really going to help you. They're going to sell you, because you're not saying I'm a professional person. You're showing them, you're demonstrating firsthand, and they can see that, right? And that makes a good first impression. It's always best to show rather than tell. Instead of saying, I have good communication skills, well, that's kind of irrelevant because you're demonstrating your communication skills during this interaction. Okay? So these are very important things. They're usually overlooked when people talk about how to prepare for a job interview. They focus instead upon, your technical requirements and how to answer questions. And I cover a lot of that stuff because there's a demand for me to cover it. But this is the less talked about, but more important aspect of job interviews. So that's how you sell yourself. And that's the primary purpose of a job interview. And anything else. When you go to a networking event, you're doing this stuff just by interacting with people. You never know who you're talking to. The person you might be having a casual conversation with, maybe you're all seated at a table, right? You go to an event, you watch a presentation or something, and they seat you in tables, maybe 10 people to a table, and you never know who you're going to be sat next to. And you strike up a conversation. You never know. The person you're talking to, they might be your next boss, right? They might turn around at the end of this and say, you know what? We're actually looking for someone that has some of the things that you have. If you're open to it, give me a call and let's talk further. That stuff happens. And so as you're interacting with people, you're selling yourself. That's why this is important. So hopefully that is interesting and that's relevant. Thank you so much for listening today. I appreciate all you guys. Once again, don't forget to subscribe to my channels. And if you'd like to get a lot further into this, as always, I have 2 courses. The first of which is Get Hired. That's what it's called, my Get Hired course. And I take you through absolutely everything you need to get hired. So if you're in the job search mode these days and you're a little bit lost, a little bit intimidated, don't know quite what to do, it's not just about preparing for job interviews. It's about discovering job opportunities. It's about putting yourself forward for those. It's about going through the hiring process, which includes things like salary negotiation and all of that, background checks. That entire process, if you're kind of lost and you want to get a grip on the entire thing, consider checking out my course. There's a link in the description. And also, in a couple of days, I will have my second course, which is called the $100 MBA, that will hopefully be out finally. And for $100, I walk you through an MBA, Master's of Business Administration. So if you're somebody who is thinking of taking an MBA, but you're not really sure if it's right for you, or you're wanting to take an MBA, but you're wanting to maybe get a bit of a head start on it and improve your performance, or you're someone who just is interested in the material, but you don't really feel like committing a year or 2 of your life and several $1,000s to get the piece of paper, this is a course where I walk you through an entire MBA program. I give you a book list, which are textbooks that are used for the various subjects that are used in universities in North America, including things like Harvard. And you can order those books off Amazon. You can order slightly older editions if you wish to substantially reduce the price. And you can read these books. It's a self-study thing. You can read them at your convenience to the depth that you're interested in and on your own schedule. And I walk you through the whole process, and you get an appreciation for what an MBA is, and you can learn all the material in depth if you wish, or you can just skim it. It's up to you. So that's called my $100 MBA course. And I don't have a link just yet because the course isn't quite out. It'll be out within a week, hopefully. But I will be putting a link in the description when that comes out. So hopefully that's helpful. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you guys listening, and I appreciate your feedback in the comments or any questions you send in. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care.